Good morning, everybody. So today we're going to continue what we've been doing with percents by talking about percent change. Now, percent change is something you might have heard before, saying, my salary went up by 10%, or the population decreased by 10% or 15% or whatever. So, our essential question for today is, what is percent change a percent of? So, when they say something increased by a certain percent, well, what is that a percent of? And to illustrate what I mean, we're going to start with a couple of different possibilities. Student A and student B are disagreeing. I'm going to read what they think and have you take a minute to think who you agree with, who you think is right. So, student A, so in this situation, we have a number increases from 100 to 125. So, student A says that the number increased by 25% because it went up by 25. It did go up by 25. And 25 is 25% of 100. Okay, if we check his work, he's right. 25% of 100 is 25, using what we've done the last couple of days. Okay, so he says that that is a 25% increase. Student B says the number increased by 20% because it went up 25, so they agree about that. And 25 is 20% of 125. So the number that it went up to, 20% of that number is 25, or is 20. So if we check that work is also correct. 20% of 125 is 25. So they both agree that it went up by 25, but they disagree about what percent of an increase that is. Student A thinks it's 25%. Student B thinks it's 20%. So let's pause the video here and you can decide who you think is right. All right, welcome back. The answer is student A. Student A is correct. Okay. This is a 25% increase. And the reason that it's a 25% increase instead of a 20% increase is because percent change is always a percent of the original amount. Okay. So it went up by 25, which is 25% of where it started, which is 100. Okay. So we're saying what percent of the original number, not the number we end up with, but the original number, it increased or decreased by. Okay. That'll make maybe a little more sense after you do some more examples. But that is the first thing maybe to write down about our percent change. So percent change is a ratio that compares the change in quantity to the original amount. So original is kind of the key here. Okay. The formula that we have for it is just the amount of change divided by the original times 100. Okay, that is the percent of change. Okay, and this comes directly from the percent proportion or the percent equation if you wanted to see where that comes from. Proportion might be easier. But basically, we're just going to put the amount that it changed, divide by the original amount, and then multiply that by 100 to turn it into a percent. Remember, that'll just move the decimal 2 places. Okay. So one thing that you can use to help yourself try to remember that, some people remember this is no over O. Okay, it might be helpful for you because that rhymes, but no means the new minus the original. Okay, that gives you the amount that it changed. Okay, and then the bottom is the original number. That's what we're going to divide by. Okay. All right. Now, you might be thinking, well, if the original is bigger than the new price, because the price went down, you'd get a negative number. Now, when you're dealing with percent change, your answer is never going to be negative. You're not going to say it's like a negative percent because a negative percent doesn't really make sense. But if you get a negative, if the number is going down, the way you're going to say that is you're going to label that a percent decrease. Okay, so if the number goes up, it's a certain percent increase. If it goes down, it's a decrease. So you don't need to worry about positives and negatives. Just consider how much it changed, what the original was, and then if it went up or down. Okay, so you'll see that in the examples. So let's do an example here. So we want to determine whether the percent of change is an increase or decrease. They want to find the percent change. So here it says our number started at 32 and then it went to 40. So did that go up or down? Well, 40 is bigger than 32, so my number went up. Okay, that tells me this is going to be an increase, a certain percent increase. Okay, to find how much of an increase it is, I had to find how much it changed. So the new minus the original. Well, it went from 32 to 40. That's a change of 8. And I divide that by the original number. This is the biggest mistake people make, is they'll plug in the wrong number here, so be careful. We plug in the original number where it started before it changed. Right? So the original number is 32. Okay, and then I'm gonna move the decimal 2 places or multiply by 100 to turn this into a percent once I get it. So 8 divided by 32, if you punch it in, you get 0.25. Okay, 0.25 times 100, we're just moving the decimal, equals 25%. We would say this is a 25% increase. It went up 25% of what it was. Okay, some people might recognize 25 as percent as 1/4. And notice that, well, 32 is 4 times bigger than 8. So this is 1/4 of this number. So it increased by 1/4 or 25%. Let's try another one. So this one started off at 20 and went to 4. So the number got smaller, which means I'm going to consider this a percent decrease. Okay, so it's going to be a decrease. And to figure out what the percent is, I figure out how much it changed. So the difference between these numbers is 16. Again, if I do the new minus original, 4 minus 20 would give you a negative 16. But all that negative means is that it's decreasing, which we already knew. Okay, we're just considering that it's going down, tells us that. Okay. So the change is 16. That's how much difference there is between those numbers. And then we divide that by the original number, which is 20. Okay, so 16 divided by 20, if you divide that, you get 0.8. Okay. Multiplying it by 100 means we're turning this into a percent. So that's 80%. So we would call this an 80% decrease. All right. If you had $20 in the bank and now you're at $4, you could say that your bank account decreased by 80%. All right. Why don't you, well, let's do a couple. Let's do these two together and then they can try some. The numbers aren't super easy here. All right. So same process. If I go from 21 to 251, that is definitely an increase. All right, that went up a lot. So all right, increase. Find out how much it increased. I figure out the change. So from 21 to 251, if you subtract that, that went up by 230. Okay, and I divide that by the original amount. The original amount is 21. All right, this is not going to be a super easy number, which is why we have calculators. We could divide this if we want to, but let's use our calculator. 230 divided by 21 equals 10.95. It keeps going. I'll say 952. We'll stop there. Okay. I put in a couple extra decimal points here because I know I'm going to be multiplying by 100, so I'm going to be moving it over 2 places. So I'm going to want to still have something after my decimal point. So if I move that over 2 places, that's multiplying by 100, I get 1095 point, oh, oops. 1095.2%. Okay, and I'm going to put a little squiggly because I rounded it, so that's about what it is. So say this is about a 1095.2% increase. Okay, not a super nice number there, but that's okay. All right, let's look at another one. So this goes from 13 down to negative 15. Negative 15 is smaller, so this is a decrease. The number went down. To say how much it went down, I got to figure out the difference. Okay, so here's where we have to remember a little something about our positives and negatives. 13 and negative 15, if we figure out how much it went down, well, it'd have to go down 13 to get to 0, and then another 15 to get down to negative 15. So these two numbers are 28 apart. If you subtract 13 minus negative 15, that's the same as 13 plus 15, which is 28. Okay, so this is the amount of the change. We divide that by the original number, which is 13. And again, this is not going to be a pretty number. Let's see what we get. 28 divided by 13. About 2.1538. Again, I'm leaving a couple extra decimals on there so I can round it appropriately. Okay, so now that I divided, I multiply by 100, which means I move the decimal 2 places. And I get 215 point. I have a 3 and an 8. Let's round it to 1 decimal point. Okay, the 3 has an 8 following it, which means I round up to 4. So it's about a 215.4% decrease. All right. So let's have you try these three. So here I have the price of gas, milk, and eggs on Sunday, and the price of the same three items on Monday. So I want you to tell me what is the percent change in the price from Sunday to Monday. Okay, for each one of these three things, and then tell me whether it's a percent increase or decrease. So let's pause it there and hit resume when you're ready to check your answers. All right, welcome back. Hopefully these are the answers that you got. For gas, it went down. So 22 cents divided by 326. Multiply it by 100 to make it a percent, gives you about 6.7%. Okay. For milk, it went up 40 cents, so 0.4 divided by 2.79. With the decimal 2 places, gives you about 14.3%. And lastly, eggs went down $1. So 1 divided by the original price, which was 1.99, multiplied by 100 gives you just over 50%, about 50.3. Okay. All right, so why don't you try this one? I'll pause it, see what you think, and then we'll check, see how you did. All right, welcome back. Hopefully you got 25%. Okay, if we subtract 150 minus 125, the change is 30,000. It went up, so I should include that here, is a 25% increase. Right, 30% divided by the original amount, 120,000, gives you 25%, which is a 25% increase. Okay. Now, if you're comfortable using the formula, that's great. Remember, this comes right out of the percent proportion. If you wanted to find the percent any of the other ways we've chosen, it would still certainly work. Right? If you think about the proportion, we want to know, remember, a percent change to the percent of the original amount. So in this case, 30,000 would be the part. And the thing we're finding a percent of is the original amount. Percent I don't know. And then over 100. Okay, hopefully you can see from this why our formula works. The change divided by the original times 100 gives you the percent. Okay, you could even do the percent equation if you want. Again, the part, remember part equals percent times whole. So the part is 30,000. Percent, I don't know. The whole is 120,000. Again, if we divided both sides by the 1, if we solve this for P divided by 120,000, we'd still be dividing these two numbers. Okay, and that would give me P as a decimal, which I know I then multiply by 100. Okay, so these things still work. It's going to always get you to the point where we just divide these two numbers and move the decimal. Okay, so that formula kind of shortcuts to what you're going to be doing. All right, why don't you try this one? I'll pause it here, and I'll pause when you're ready to check. All right, welcome back. Hopefully you got a 20% decrease. 48 is the change. It went from 240 down to 192. That's a difference of 48. The original amount was 240, so 48 divided by 240 is 0.2. With the decimal places, that is 20%. The number went down, so it's a 20% decrease. All right, let's consider something that I see get mixed up all the time. Let's say you're living large, making $100,000 a year. And then something happens. Maybe you own a business and you expand it, but you double your salary. So you go from making $100,000 a year to $200,000 a year. Okay. What I hear people mess up a lot or say about this a lot is that is a 200% increase. Now, that statement is understandable because people think, well, this is 200% of that. Okay, but that's not what percent change means. If we think about our formula here, if you go from 100,000 to 200,000, the change is 100,000. The original amount was 100,000. Okay, if you divide that, you get 1. 1 times 100 is 100%. So if you double your money, that's actually a 100% increase, right? You increased it by 100% of what you were making. Okay, so a doubling is a 100% increase. If you were to triple the amount, okay, that would be a 200% increase because you go up by 200% of what you were making, or double. Okay. So this, I see it. I've even seen this in the newspaper a couple of times. Just people making mistakes with this statistic. Okay, so be careful. Right, a 100% increase would double your money. A 200% would triple. That means like a 900% increase, you'd be making 10 times. Okay, so those numbers don't line up necessarily the way you might think they do. All right, so that's all I got for you. Good luck. Make sure to ask questions if you have them.